Asphalt on the Trap Talk Reptile Network. Tonight I'm joined with Mike from Mike's Monitors. How's it going, Mike?
How you all doing? How you doing? Hey, nice to see you, Chris.
You, mate. A pleasure as always. We got into a lot of stuff backstage, even in the short time, so I'm really excited for this episode tonight. Just wanted to start, Mike, before we do. Everyone knows who you are. You're on the same same network with a great podcast. So let's just get into some USARK stuff. I've been working a little bit with USARK for this Varanus McRae ESA listing. So as an outside of America, I didn't really realize how important USARK is. I obviously have a bit more of an understanding now. So maybe just go into how important it is to you guys. And I'll
Well, you know what? In the United States, I'm not a world traveler or nothing, but in the United States, if it wasn't for USARK, I mean, I'm sure we would have lost way more rights at keeping these animals that we love. So they are on the front lines fighting for our rights to keep these animals. It's really not a game. It's not a game for guys like you and me and a lot of people and other people that are just coming in. It's unknown. So it's not like real important to them. But, we love these animals. And unless you're able to show people these animals and how you keep them set up and how they live and talk about their natural history and whatnot, people don't save what they don't know. So if I feel that USARK and guys like us are, one thing we can do to help the fight with USARK is to show our passion and pass that to the next generation and really get people involved in our animals and our setups and how we do things, husbandry, light bulbs, the whole 9 yards, because it's all very important. So if you get people involved and actually caring about seeing lizards and, reptiles, they'll join in the fight. So anybody who's watching this, of course, go to USARK website, join on any tier. I think they have a tier as low as $5, but you can join at any tier level. I've been a silver member for a long time. And it's not a lot of money. The money that Phil Goss and Vanessa and Jeremy have is not a lot of money to fight these, things like PETA and the Humane Society. These people have lobbyists and donators and sponsors, and we don't really have a lot of that. So we need numbers. That's what I think is very important right now, is if you come with 10 or 20 people aren't going to pay much attention. But if you come with 10,000, 20,000 people, and that's a big impact on these people who are, elected into power. And, if your constituents want something, you got to be there with your constituents. So join USARK level, like I said, at any level of their tier system. If you're at a show, donate your time, donate a product, donate an animal, all for the auctions, and just to help these people out and help us out in return. So join USARK today.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I've just seen a little bit of the work that they're doing behind the scenes with this ESA listing. Big thanks to everyone that commented on that. It had a lot of comments in the end, so hopefully that helps. But they're just fighting stuff all the time, Mike, not just like one thing. They've got stuff picking up in different states and stuff like that. So it's a lot of work and really important to show how many people nowadays, I'm going to get into this a little bit more as the topic of the show, but how many people these days are keeping reptiles and how important it is to all of us. We just need them numbers to show exactly like you said. If 10 people are in it, it doesn't look much, but if thousands, tens of thousands, whatever it is, it looks a lot better for us.
Absolutely. And we're normal people who love animals. We have lives. We have families. We work. And then, we keep animals on the side, or some people do it as a living. And, it seems all the legislatures and, in the past, 10 years for sure, which is probably even longer than that, but they do all these bills and they compile things in a bill. So, these senators and legislatures get these bills that are this big, and they got, 24 hours or maybe a couple days to read it and decipher it, and then come up with a way to combat it or to go along with it. And it usually comes through, shady United States politicians. It's always like, the 11th hour in the middle of the night. It's terrible. So, Phil Goss, big props to Phil Goss, man. He's on top of this stuff. And, and he's a one-man gang. Of course, there's, like I said, Vanessa and Jeremy and others in the organization, but it's a lot of work. So, yeah. And they unfortunately, they are coming at us hard. It seems that in this day and age, like, especially in the United States, because I can't speak for anywhere else, there's a thing in the United States. It's like, in the 70s, I remember as a kid, man, everything was fun. You didn't, there was laws and rules, of course, but people wanted you to have fun. It was okay to ride your bike and to skateboard and, keep animals. And nowadays, you see kids getting in trouble for riding their skateboards. That's what I like to call, they're like the fun police. They don't want to see us happy and having fun. They want us to see us under their thumb of rule, and shut your mouth and like it or don't like it. Unfortunately, for a guy like me, I don't respond well to that, and I hope most people don't. You got to be you, man. Don't let nobody put you down, keep you down.
Yeah, getting the same pressures in Europe as well, mate. A big shout out to Responsible Reptile Keeping. They're doing a survey at the moment. It's pretty much a similar vein to USARK. There's a lot of talk at the moment from what I've seen. Obviously, I'm a bit out of the loop now being in Indonesia. But yeah, there's talks about positive lists and all this stupid stuff. There's a few great podcasts if anyone's more interested. I think Paul's Monitors did a really good one with the head of that organization. So yeah, the annoying thing with it, Mike, is, and like I said, we'll get into this, we've never been as good, in my opinion, at keeping reptiles as right now. And it seems the most amount of pressure to stop us doing it is right now. It's like sod's law almost.
It is. It's weird how, like in the past, I don't know, like I said, maybe 6, 8, 10 years, it's a weird atmosphere we live in. Nobody lets each other live and let live. It's all about, keeping. There's one class that wants to keep you down and another class that thinks they're above. And man, and I can assure you, as a Christian, when you're on your deathbed, there ain't none of this and that. We're all like this, and you better make some good decisions and good choices where you're going to spend eternity. And I don't really want to get into that on this because there's varying opinions, but yeah, you gotta get right and stay right, man. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, we've got a bit of this cancel culture sort of culture going on, I guess, where everyone else is in everyone else's business. Like I said, going to the 90s and stuff, when I grew up, everyone was sort of, as long as you didn't hurt anyone else, it seemed to just do what you want. And maybe the 70s or 80s were probably even better than that. But let's go something a bit more positive then, Mike. Let's talk about the last, you think you said 30 years. I think I've been doing it. I've been doing it about 25 years. Like I said, I was lurking on the forums and stuff. So maybe just talk about the evolution and what it was like for being a monitor keeper 30 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, okay. So, I mean, I've been keeping them my whole life since I was 5. I'm 60 years old. Last year I turned 60. So I've seen such a change. And what's really strange about it is, when I think about it, I haven't personally changed with, of course, I've advanced my husbandry skills, and of course, it's just a natural progression. But for me, it always started with, I love the animals. However, when I got a turtle or a toad, I didn't just bring it home and throw it in a 10-gallon tank with some dirt on the bottom and watch it. I had to make these elaborate setups that look like their natural habitat to the best of my ability. And that's what has always been 45 plus years of me creating naturalistic habitats that I love as much as I love keeping the animals. It's just, I don't know. My grandmother was an artist, and she, you know, real good eye for aesthetics, and that's probably where I got that from. And so, yeah, that's a big part of it for me. And back then, you know, some people said, you know, whatever. I don't want to really get into much negativity, but I've gotten beef and flack over my naturalistic setups. And I'm like, you know, hey, dude, just do you and I'll do me. And, you know, somewhere down the line, it'll all work out. Everybody will be happy. But with that being said, the keeping of the naturalistic setups, like I say, is the biggest part of it for me as keeping the animals. You know, I like something beautiful to look at. And, you know, ever since I was a little kid, you know, my buddies, we would go to the frog pond and we would get toads and turtles and whatnot. And, you know, and I'd go to their house and they'd have the turtle in a 10-gallon tank with a little board wedged between the glass, a little basking light, which is all, that's fine. I mean, that's their basic necessities that they need. But, you know, I was always the guy who had a plant hanging, hiding the light. I never liked to see that, you know, the equipment. It's all necessary, but as much as I can hide it was the better. So friends would come to my house and they'd say, I'm going home to do that. I'm like, yeah, you know, you really should. And of course, when I was a kid and I didn't have any money, we used to go to the Burger King or whatever. And, you know, in the Burger King back in those days, the back of all the booths where the backs butt together, there was a fake flower planter in there. I didn't have any money, and I don't want to admit this, but I'm sure the statutes of limitations have run out. But, you know, we'd be eating our Big Macs or whatever and just reach behind you, pull out one of the plants and put it in your shirt. And you go home and you put it in your setup. So I don't do that no more. Now I spend the money like an idiot.
Well,
but
they're all pretty industrial now. You go into McDonald's again back in the 90s, not to get onto a McDonald's or a fast food talk, but just the way they looked back then was completely different. It's gone very clinical now. I don't think you'd even find a plant in a McDonald's or a Burger King now.
Right. So
but no,
I guess that's like I say, for, you know, the tree monitors, everything else. Why I just can't see putting a beautiful animal like that in a bare bottoms, bare bones type enclosure, which works. I mean, you just got to get their husbandry dialed in. All the aesthetics, you know, is more for us. However, you know, an argument that I've had with in those days, in the forum days, and I'm sure you can see it all. So when I was using plants and people would say, yeah, you know, they know that's a fake plant. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But when you have two animals in an enclosure, I don't care how big your enclosure is, it's not the wild. They can't get away from each other. They're stuck, you know, living together in basic solitary confinement. So, you know, I always offered each animal their own basking spot, their own hide spot. So they didn't have to fight over that kind of stuff. And I noticed with Prasinus early on, you know, I had a couple of Prasinus that used to beef back and forth. And I was like, wow, you know, as soon as they see each other, it's on. So I started hanging plants from the ceilings in my enclosures. And they act as, they look beautiful, and they act as a visual barrier. So now instead of these two animals on opposite sides of the cage, basking, you know, holding a branch tensely, just being ready to bolt from the next, I put the plants in between them, and they could no longer see each other while they're basking and relaxing. And they would literally, you know, relax out. You could see their nails weren't dug into the log. They were actually legs back, relaxed. And so, you know, you shouldn't always crack on things that you see, because there's always most of what I do, there's always a reason behind it. Like if you come here and you say, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy, you got that plant hanging across the top, there's a reason it's there. It's either I like the way it looks or it's serving a purpose. So
yeah, I don't know, was it you or your wife, Mike, that's quite into the fish or aquaculture? Like it seems bizarre like how much thought and effort goes into like those aquariums and stuff, and very little effort for the fish sometimes. And they'll put like thousands and thousands, especially the marine stuff is just insane, but thousands and thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever you want to say, into these aquariums to put like a $2 fish in there.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, like I said, coming through, I think the 90s was pretty good for naturalistic stuff. And then, unfortunately, with the morph and everything and going into racks, not so much with the monitors, obviously, sort of went out. And it's quite nice to see now people moving back to keeping like a smaller collection and wanting to have a bit of the jungle or the desert or whatever it is in their living room.
Yeah, absolutely. So that back in those days, like I said, I've been keeping long before the internet and the forums and stuff. And that was always my gig, naturalistic setups. So when the internet did come around, I'm glad you sparked the thought I was going with. Forgive me, I'm getting old. But so the Europeans, when the internet came out and, people would share photos on the forums, not like it is today, not like Facebook and Instagram, just little forums on websites. These Europeans would come in. Here's me using all silk plants and fake plants. And these Europeans, they got natural plants, set up, growing and thriving. And, I was just so drawn to them, the Europeans and their way of keeping that, now in these days to see the way things are coming and people really put an effort into that, it's twofold. It's good for your animals. It's good for you to look at. And then, like I'm saying about getting people into this to carry on the next generation. Hold on, I got a thermostat going off. 1 second.
Let's get to the comments quick while Mike sorts that out.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, as always. Emmerich Smokes Factory, good morning or good night where I am, but good morning to you, mate. Lucia Laborials, thanks for tuning in, mate. Dan, how's it going, mate? We're going to get into some Simlis talk. I've just actually sent some Simlis over to the UK, so I'm sure we'll be really interested in that, and Dan got some of those. How's it going, Dave? All good, mate. I think that's all of it. Brad's Bioactive Builds. Thank you all for tuning in. If you've got any questions for me or Mike throughout the show, just let us know. I'm sure we can ramble on about it. I forgot where you were, Mike. Do you remember where you were? The Europeans.
Yeah, I do remember I was. So talking about naturalistic setups and keeping like that over the lowest common denominator, a stack of boards with a light bulb over the top, a bunch of dirt, not much to do, to keep their brains active, no enrichment. It's quite sad, actually, because these animals deserve way better than that. And then with your comment there, Brad's Bioactive Builds, he's a friend of mine who lives, very close to me. He came here. He's seen my Merton setup, which we'll get into about the fish. And his mind, he was blown away. And, it didn't take me long to figure Brad out. And he's a very good guy, skill builder. Way more skilled at building than me. I mean, this guy, he has and uses tools that I don't. I use a skill saw, a drill gun, and probably a tape measure. That's it for building all this stuff. This guy's got everything. He's got micrometers. So he fell in love with my Merton setup. And, I could see the gleam in his eye. You know what I'm saying? You could see when their wheels are turning. I've seen this guy's wheel, and plus he was already doing good stuff. So I had a bunch of extra tubs, these Hagen Laguna tubs. And, I'm getting old and I had a stockpile of them. And, they were always there for the next project. And, my wife was kind of saying, you're getting old, you come up and you complain about how hot it is and your hip hurts. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right. So Brad had asked if I was willing to sell some of them. So I sold him the 2 tubs that I use for my Merton setup. And man, Brad put together such a beautiful, beautiful setup for his Mertons that he got from me. But yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. That's the way it should be. We should all bounce ideas off of everybody. And I don't know how I come off. I don't know how I come off. I don't want to come off like a know-it-all because I'm going to be the first guy to tell you, hey, I'm a I'm a lizard janitor and a food monkey. I just take care of these things to the best of my abilities. I will always say this. These animals are the professionals. They know what they're doing. All you got to do is support their natural history and their natural behaviors and whatnot. And if you treat them right and do them right, they're going to give you eggs and so on and so forth. So I give myself very little credit for all the animals that I produce. I don't produce anything. I'm a food monkey and a lizard janitor. The lizards know what they're doing. Just support them, and they'll give you what you're looking for. But again, Brad's Bioactives, check him out.
Definitely. Yeah, there's a funny thing, Mike. I think it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and I get it all the time. Just at the point where you think you know everything, I mean, none of us know anything at all. But just at the point you know everything, everything gets swept up like underneath you, and there'll be new problems you haven't faced before, and that's what makes, I think, enjoyable in a sense. It can be really stressful at the time. Like I said, I've just started in the last, obviously, year that I've been here in Indonesia. I've never kept anything outdoors. And I was like, it changes so much over here with each day and everything. And when it's going good, I'm like, oh no, I've got this sorted. And then I'll have a week where everything's going absolutely wrong. And I'm like, I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing about this. And it's like a whole new experience of doing the outdoor stuff. But you know, we've both been keeping monitors a long time. We don't know anything, mate. Like every single week, there's a new challenge, a new problem. And that's what keeps it exciting, I think.
Right. Well, so like trying to stay grounded and you know, level and not think you're a know-it-all, because we know there are people out there in the past and right now who think they know it all. And you know what? Those are the people that kind of stagnate, or you know, they'll stagnate, but they're never going this way, and they stagnate, and then a few years go by and everybody's going like this, and this guy's going like this, or these people are going like this. So there's always something new to learn. There's always advancements in husbandry equipment, husbandry itself. Like, for example, if I thought I was a know-it-all, I would still be talking about, I've been working with Similis for 30 plus years. I haven't gotten an egg. However, with an open mind, and you posted a picture probably, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago of your Similis, and you were digging up eggs. And I was like, you know what? I got to talk to this guy. So we had talked, and I, you know, you get, I was basically stagnating with my Similis for sure, without a doubt. And I don't want to be that guy. So I reached out to you and we talked, and all from a video, not a video, the TV show, The Croc Hunter, right? Steve Irwin. So one of the episodes, he was up in the Northern Territory in a flooded forest. He was literally trouncing around in a flooded forest up to his knees in water. And you know how that guy was. He's like, oh, you know, he just looked up, and then the next thing you see is the bottom of his feet, and the camera's got to pan up to him. And he's got a little stick, and he's sticking this little lizard out of a hollow underneath some bark. And he pulled it out, and it was Varanus similis. Well, what, you know, I don't know if that's what they were calling it. You know, I don't know if it was Scalaris, but I do believe it was similis.
Yeah, it could have been similis up there. I'm sure they get them in far North Queensland, I think they are. So it's the same. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So my brain thought from seeing that is, okay, they like it really hot and humid, even to the point where parts of the year the ground is gone. They're flooded. It's flooded forest. So I was keeping them that way for many years. So many years, I'd like to slap myself. Then I contacted you, and we had this conversation, and you said, oh, mate, you know, if the ones you had were from Australia, you'd be keeping them right. However, what you have comes from southern New Guinea. And then you showed me their habitat, and I was like, I cannot believe I did these animals wrong for all these years and never tried to investigate it. But when what you showed me, the habitat where you find them or collect them, it was totally opposite of what I thought. And since then, I've been making a lot of changes, seeing a lot of new behaviors. And just yesterday, me and my son Angelino, we removed them from their really big, nice, naturalistic type setup. We put them in a more simple setup, which it'll advance. But for now, I just had to move a bunch of stuff around. And yeah, your insight has gotten me. In 30 years, I've seen similes eating and sitting and basking. That's it. But with your insight, I've seen courtship behavior now. I've seen why. I'm going to be confident enough to say I've seen a lock. I've seen the belly hang, an ovulation. So I'm hoping with this new setup, I can actually get eggs. And if I do, I owe it to you, bro.
Yeah, I can't even say that I'm any expert. They've been breeding them at the farm for years on end. I've sort of just cottoned onto it and maybe just got a bit more new information. Like I said to you, Mike, they are the most productive monitor we've got here.
You had to do it again to me, didn't you?
I mean, yeah, I got some videos I took just to rub it in. If you really want to see, I was sorting some babies out the other day. Interestingly, be careful with it because Merauke and Northern Australia does get a period where it will actually flood in that. So they do need it wet for a part of the year, maybe not wet all the time. So they go from pretty much extremes. I think that's why they do so well here. Because like I said, during the rainy season, it can rain here every day pretty trenchily. But as soon as April comes, it'll be baking hot. And I mean, I'll show some pictures in a minute. But it's the hottest part of the farm and they're getting cooked, like really cooked, and then it'll be super dry. But like I said, the rain, they're sort of getting the tail end of it now. And they've had it for the last 2 months. It can be like raining for like 3 days. So don't fall into the trap of saying they have to be dry all the time. They're not like an Aki. They have like this 2 seasons, basically, really, really hot and dry, like that picture I sent you. And then the other part of the year, pretty wet. And like the important thing was it drops very cold.
That's the point I was missing with mine. I kept mine pretty consistently hot and humid. I mean, really hot and humid. I've never dried them out. I've never got them down below. Well, my room is like 80, 82 degrees. So I've never gotten them down below, 79, 78, maybe. So now I've moved them into the other room, and at night they're experiencing lows down to 70. So, I don't know if that's even cool enough.
Sorry, there's massive thunder. Like I said, I might cut out, Mike, because there's an absolutely huge storm coming. I don't know if you heard that crack of lightning there, but just carry on it. So that's what they can experience as well. They can experience like super hot, and then like this, it'll be crazy raining in a minute.
So we're talking about what I believe, and of course, what I believe. A lot of my issues with these is in my head. I was always thinking hot and tropical. And then when we talked a little bit, you were telling me, oh, no, mate, they really experience some cold temperatures like through the night.
For sure.
And like I say, right now where I have them, they're experiencing, because it's been quite cold here lately, they're experiencing, probably down to 70 degrees at night for, 12 hours. So I don't know if that's enough. If I've got to get a little colder, I mean, what do you think?
I'm just going to convert. I'm literally getting my phone out now to convert it because I'm in Celsius, mate. Into C. It's about right, mate. It can probably go a little bit lower. We usually get like the lowest it gets here. Let me convert it back into Fahrenheit for you. It's about 65, mate. So they will have 65. Literally for 6 months, it won't be that. It'll be about what you're saying, maybe a little bit higher, maybe 75 degrees. But they will get at least 4 months at around 65. Okay,
because like as long as I've had them in my room before I move them out to my secondary, my cold room where I keep my bow and I, is it's got to be. I mean, I gradually lowered. I didn't shock them, but from what you're saying, they've got to be like, finally, we're home. I mean, not literally, but experiencing the temperatures that their, that their bodies and their instincts tell them they need, and what triggers breeding behavior and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing they are pretty good at here. We had a random clutch a week ago just a 4-egg clutch. It can just be an anomaly. I did a stock check today. We've got 12 males and 19 females, and they are all like clockwork. As soon as sort of probably May, June, they all start. And that's when all those pictures. That's when I sort of come over here and I was collecting all those eggs up. But then they'll do that for a few months. But it's quite interesting to see that trigger. So they've gone from the cold, wet temperatures that we've got now. It's sort of April, May. It's going to be super hot again, and they won't get that drop. And then that seems to be the period that we're collecting all the eggs.
Okay, so what you're saying is the cold part of the year is more like a dormant period for them, and then as it heats up, they start to breed again.
Yeah, that's what it seems.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I think I'm onto something now, because we're coming into spring here, and even the cold side of my basement is not going to be, the temperatures that I'm experiencing now. So hopefully that it builds up to what they need.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally cook them for if you've kept them cold now. I'd still do drop at night, because even here it drops. Even when it's pretty in the day, it will still drop at night. So they do seem to like that drop. But you could cook them now as you're coming in. Probably it's pretty similar to here, believe it or not. Even though we got a different sort of season where we get a wet season and a dry season. The season here is actually colder, and then we go into the dry season that is hotter, and it does match up with you, sort of where you are in the northern hemisphere. So if you've had them that cold temperature, just cook them now as you're coming in, as the temperatures go.
As my season changes here, so it's probably going to give me another couple of months in the cool temperatures. Then as it heats up here, my basement naturally comes up. Several degrees.
That's identical. I took a few pictures today. That's literally all the enclosures. They don't look smart or anything like that. But that is literally the hottest part of the farm.
I don't see anything. Oh, wait.
Can you see it?
Something. It looks like it's loading for me. There's a thing spinning in a circle. And I see the Trap Talk logo. Maybe other people see it.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Can anyone see it or not? Or is it just me that sees it?
It's probably me. I'm low tech.
Anyone in the comments can see it, just let us know. I don't know if it'll come up, Mike.
Yeah. But at any rate, you send me all this stuff. But it's good for the people to see it and understand too. But I can't thank you enough. Our friendship means the world to me. We're two guys that have a great passion for these animals, and I believe there's a lot of people, Nick Lillis, there's a lot of people in this game that, truly have a love and a passion for these animals. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for monitor lizards. However, this has to be said. It really does. And I'm kind of a snob. Wow. Wow, that's loud, dude. Maybe one of your cages got hit.
No, we're in a valley here, Mike. So I'm literally in between two mountains. So the weather systems we get coming through the farm, I've never seen storms like it. You guys get tornadoes and stuff, I think, from where you are, maybe?
Oh, I'm in the Midwest. So, we get the tornadoes. We don't get hurricanes or,
we don't get any serious weather in the UK at all. Like our little storms are nothing. I've come here, and the past couple of weeks, the storms are serious. It's scary.
Yeah. So I wanted to say, and I don't want to. I always think that I'm coming off as, and this is the exact opposite. This is what I hate. I hate the elitists and the people who are one-uppers and I'm better than you. I hate that stuff. And that's not what I'm trying to come across. I'm a retired cement finisher, so I'm not really eloquently spoken, and I do my best. So what I want to say right here is in the monitor lizards is unlike any other type of reptiles. Number one, they're highly intelligent. They deserve our respect, and they'll demand the respect. If you don't give them the respect, you're going to find out, because they're not dumb animals, and they figure you out as much as you figure them out. But with that being said, the decline of habitat, all the habitat destruction, human encroachment. I think, and I want to say this, and I want this to go down forever. I think it's very important for us, myself especially, to not hybridize animals. You take a perfectly good species and another perfectly good species, you mix them up, and you think you've made, and I hate that made. We don't make nothing. The animals do what they do. So you produce this mutt, for lack of not knowing what to call it, but you produce a mutt, which is neither species A or species B. You created a monster, a Frankenstein. And when these areas get closed down and all that's running around is three-way Gouldai crosses or whatever the case may be, the pure lineage, the pure genetics of these animals is gone forever. So for myself personally, I don't even like to breed the same species from other localities. I like to keep everything locale specific to the best of my knowledge. Things change all the time. But so please, if anybody's thinking about getting into monitors and breeding monitor lizards, for the love of God, man, keep everything as pure as you can. Accidents happen, whatever the case may be. Don't do it. That's my opinion, and that's what I have to say about that. Anybody got any opinions in the thing? Call me an asshole, whatever you want. We could talk about it. I'm always talking. So,
yeah, the worst one is when it's just lazy, mate. That's the worst. When it's just like just because you've got one of one and one or the other, or that's all you could be bothered to go and find out. If you put enough work in, nearly always you can find one. And like I said, I wouldn't do it I'm like you, Mike. I just wouldn't breed it if I couldn't find another one. But if you put some serious work in, someone will post one or someone will have one somewhere. It's the laziness of just getting it to breed it to usually just to make a bit of money that's the problem. If you're really
I could speak on that a little bit too. I produce quite a bit of animals. However, I don't produce quite a bit of money in my bank account. So anybody who thinks these aren't, and forgive me, I'm not cracking on anybody. These are not ball pythons. You can't put them in a rack with no overhead lighting and just a little heat tape on the bottom. You can't do that. So to properly do Varanids indoors, you're going to have a high electric bill, very high. You're going to have your food bill, your time and your energy. Literally, I'm down here every day, 6-8 hours a day, working with animals. So your time, electric, food bill, you know what that equals? No money. But you're doing what you love. And when you see an egg hatch, it's the best feeling in the world. So, I don't know anybody who's making, a killing breeding Varanid lizards because, like I said, the overhead is just so great. I would imagine, with what I know nowadays, if I put together a commercial operation, but then you're talking, you got to have a couple employees, running around, you got to pay them. So I really, honestly, unless you're able to do it outside with the natural, you're not paying for the sun and maybe water wherever you're at, but all that stuff adds up, the food bill, everything. So you don't get into monitors if you think you're going to make money, because you're not.
Yeah, I mean, most reptiles like that. I think the ball pythons are probably like a really rare example of people. I don't know even about now, but probably still now. People actually be able to make serious money out of stuff just because of the way you can keep them basically, and they seem to do really well in those setups, whether you think they're right or not. I mean, I can't think of anything more boring than having 2,000 racks or whatever it is. But if that's your thing, that's your thing. What it is, but is just you just can't do it. Which separates the. It separates in a good way for me. I would hate to see, monitors being kept, any worse than they're being kept now, for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to go back to these. it's really a shame. I did send them. Are you podcasting on your phone? I just sent them to you on
Yes,
Messenger.
I'm podcasting on my phone, and I did see it come through. However, I think I'm better off just staying where I'm at, because if I try to do that, I might drop this. So I'll look at them after, you know that.
Yeah. I'll just do this because the people in the chat said they could see him.
Oh, now I can see it.
Oh, there you go. So this is literally how we keep all of them. So this is a trio of Simulus. So these are the outdoors enclosures. So you got that's the inside bit there. That's a lay box on the floor. And that's pretty much it. And that's the open side. And most of the time when it's really hot, they'll be in there. So I've got genets outside. No, not genets, they're actually civets outside calling because it's their breeding season now.
And they're wild. Those are wild civets, or
yeah. The last, again, they get a bit scared or like flushed out with all like the crazy weather. But again, it's breeding season. They're the ones that they stupidly feed coffee over here. We don't do it, obviously. But they're like Asian palm civets. So they feed them coffee. They get the most expensive coffee in the world. I tried it in Bali, and it's nothing. It actually comes from their shit. So they feed them
I you know what? I'm a big coffee guy, and I want to try civet shit coffee one time.
Let me see if I can get a couple of these. I don't know if that one worked, Mike, before. Can you see it now?
I see the row.
Yeah, so that's literally as basic as it is. Like I said, that's all the Audatria there. The interesting thing with this is, as I said before, there's nothing over the top of that. So they're getting pretty much full sun all the time, but they're also open to the elements there. Apart from that half cage that you can see on there, if I can get my cursor, they've got a section here where the lay box is. That's completely like they can't get any rain in there. Basically, I don't know how the best way to phrase that is, but it's covered over with that perspex on top, and then this bit on the right here is completely open. That's literally as simple as we do it here, and then so that there's just the indoor bit, and that's just the lay box on the floor. You can see a couple of Simulus up there. Like I said, they're pretty arboreal, so they're most of the time they're up on the sides or on those branches there.
Absolutely beautiful what you guys are doing out there in Indo. And man, just I wish I was a traveler, because I'd love to come and see you.
Oh, for sure, you're always welcome, mate, if you can make it over. But
if I took the 17-hour flight there, you'd literally have to come on the plane with a pry bar and pry my old ass out of the chair, because I couldn't move after sitting that long.
I thought I'd put this one in just to rub it in a bit.
Okay, thank you, Chris. That's all right. That's all right, buddy. Because you know what? Because of this, I have faith, and I have a lot of hope that I'm going to do that one day. And I really appreciate all the information you share with me. Beautiful work. What a great, that really makes my heart feel good to know that those animals there are not being taken out of the wild. It's a very good feeling, man.
Yeah, for sure. And I did that the other day. I took that shipment, so I sent that shipment to the UK. So I had all of the that's about half of what we produced last year. It will be now. So I was getting them out and picking the best ones out to send to the UK, actually. But I thought, Mike will like this. I knew we had the podcast coming up. I thought I'd just give you a bit of British humor, just rub it in a little bit. But
hey, you know what? It's all in good fun, because if I was the guy, I'd be doing the same thing.
Like I said, it's really hard, Mike, not to come off as just being like braggadocious or big-headed. Like I said, I have as many failures here as I do successes.
Absolutely.
So like I said, it's not to show off or anything like that, but
it's important to show. You're very humble. That's what's important. You can, because of what we do. I post clutch after clutch, hatching after hatching, and I do feel like, man, am I bragging? But it's like it depends how you do it. So if you're doing it and you're showing, like what I try to come across is, you can do this. Just you need to put in the time and the effort. And I'm not doing it to one up. I'm not doing it to brag to anybody. And like you said, you know, for as many successes I have as many failures. However, that's kind of the issue. We don't always post our failures, but they're there. Don't think this is all, you know, puppy tails and rainbows. It's not.
It's not. For sure, mate. It definitely isn't. I mean, like I said, with the outdoor stuff and stuff I have here, is whole new challenges. Like I said before, that's what makes it exciting. If it was all good all the time, then everyone would be doing it for one, and then number two, it would get boring pretty quickly. Like I said, I don't want to rib on those ball python breeders, but they've got that down to an art. Apart from obviously seeing what comes out, that must get pretty monotonous having all these thousands of rats. I don't want to upset anyone.
Yeah, but I think when they cash that $20,000 check, it probably makes them feel pretty good. I wouldn't know that because I don't do that. But you know, God bless them. And you know, again, one more time. Hold on, guys. I got one of my female Kogianas. She's in the nest box, and when she digs dirt away from the probe, the thing goes off. So that's why I keep getting up. But so what I wanted to say is, you know, man, I value our friendship so much because I'm not. My family will tell you, yeah, you're full of shit. I'm not really big social, you know, and my family will tell me, yeah, you are. But I kind of try to keep to myself, and there's not a lot of people I really tightly communicate with. I mean, I communicate with a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but our relationship, and with you being over there and going to, and that's another thing that's changed a lot. You got guys like Brian Sussin and yourself who are there, and now with this internet stuff, you're showing videos in situ while you're there, and the locale information that you guys are bringing in, along with some very cool animals, that's exciting for a guy like me. Like that'll segue us. Yeah, go on.
A bit like with the monitors and keeping like the travel now is become so open to everyone. Just like we're getting so much more availability and stuff with the monitors, the traveling is opened. I mean, I'm going to places I'd never even ever even dream of, and we have this really cool platform. I know we moan about the internet and stuff, but it is just to share, so a lot more people can see it and pick up information. Going back to like the 90s and stuff and early 2000s, we had like 3 forums. I think we were saying before, we had Varanus Net, you had Varanus NL, and then it never sort of ended. It never sort of ended. Yeah, a lot of King Snake for sure. A lot of people didn't want to share any proper information, which I think's changed completely now.
Well, you know what? Knowing what we know now, Chris, thinking back on those days, how proper would that information really have been? You know what I mean? I think now, and I'm one of the guys, you know, show me, don't blow me. That's kind of how I am. So when I hear, you know, anybody can go on, you know, weatherlog.com and see what's going on in Indo or Australia or China, wherever. However, when you know, guys like you and Brian are in situ with your cameras and video in your hand, that there's no speculation there. You're there, you're experiencing the weather, the fauna, the flora, and that's invaluable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we couldn't have dreamed about it. You know, even going back 10 years, I first started going to Australia, and that was like, wow, not many people were like, not as many as there are now, herp in that area. Like Papua New Guinea and stuff, you just like, no, people don't go there. And luckily it sort of opened up. So yeah, we got loads and loads of information, and it's so easy to share information. So I think that's the good thing that's happened the last 20 years. Before, like I said, those forums were like sort of, I don't know what the word, there was like a very clicky atmosphere to it. And I guess you kind of get it in the groups and stuff now, but I think it's to a lesser extent. But yeah, I think it's nice now that we can share stuff so freely, especially being at the farm. I mean, that's why I post a lot of the successes and stuff, just to prove that there is at least one farm in Indonesia that is captive breeding stuff. And, you know, that was my whole dream and reason for being here, was to make sure that stuff here at this farm is being captive bred. So that's sort of why I do it.
You know, that is very important, because going back to the mid 90s, that time frame, you know, when, and I really don't know legalities at all. So, and I don't know nothing about wild situations. I've never traveled to these locations, but when you are, you know, you're there back then, it was, you know, they can't export anything unless it's captive born. So things change from, it was either CBB, captive bred and born, or WC, wild caught. Then it kind of went from those two, you know, categories to FB, which was farm bred. And, you know, back then, people are skeptical. And, you know, from what my understanding is, and you're there, so you might be able to affirm this, it was as simple as some of these collectors would take a pair of green tree monitors, keep them on their property in a cage. However, they'd send their guys out and they're still harvesting eggs from the wild. However, they bring in nests or gravid females, collect the eggs, and say, oh, these are captive born. There's our adults right there. So it was very deceptive. They were still pulling from the wild, where what you guys are doing there now is actually you're not over collecting out of the wild and you know, harvesting eggs and whatnot. So yes, kudos to you guys.
Yeah.
Big time.
I mean, that's a whole podcast in itself, really. And like I said, the legalities, I don't really know what goes on in other farms. I can guess. I don't want to say too much because I'll probably end up getting headhunted or something like that. But yeah, it's a difficult one for me to explain. There's a lot of stuff that you're allowed to get from wild. There's wild caught quota for stuff. Which can come in. The good thing we're doing at this farm, like even, I don't know if you know, crocodile skinks, Mike, they're like a little really cheap drink. We've got like 250 adults because the ones we get in, they just die. So we're like, right, we'll just breed them. We got the space, so we'll just breed them. So we work with a lot of stuff that is super cheap and just captive bred is better. Legally, it has tightened up a vast amount. We've all actually got an audit in the last couple of weeks. So all the farms are getting audited at the moment, which is good. Is really good. Hopefully, some of the maybe unscrupulous farms
you'll weed them out. Yep.
Yeah, the quota gets lowered. We invite the scientific authority over here to sort of show them, okay, it's okay. You go into these other farms, but do you really know what you should be seeing? Again, not to be big headed or anything, but we've got like a really good facility. Like Bunchy spent millions of pounds probably or millions of dollars to set up this facility. So we try and invite them here just to go, if you're going to you know, other places and stuff, maybe just look at what we're doing here and then compare it, and then you make a decision whether you think what's going on is right there. And that, like I said, we're trying to stay really focused, Mike. Otherwise we get caught up in the weeds of, oh, they're not doing it right, that we're not doing it right. We know what we're doing here is right. So that's what we're trying to do.
Well, that's good. Your farm there, you're setting the standard for the future.
Yeah.
And that's very admirable.
Yeah. Like I said, we're trying to captive breed as much as possible. Like even down to like stupid stuff, like, well, not stupid stuff, but stuff that just gets sent out as wild caught all the time. Like emerald tree skinks. They're like a super cheap lizard for us to sell. And I was like, often, unfortunately, they can die in transit. I was like, right, we'll start captive breeding one. All the captive bred ones we sent out have made it through transit and been fine. So it's like, right, we'll just concentrate on making more and more of the captive bred ones. So,
well, what a cool species too, man. They're so personable. I mean, you talk about it. My friend has a trio of them, and when you go into his place, he's got them in a big display planted out cage, and he's got 3 branches that, like, behind it all is jungle, and these 3 branches jut out towards the glass. There's not a time you can't go there where they're sitting on the glass, each in their own perch, and just watching you. Such a cool species, man. Such a cool species.
Yeah, they're really cool. Really cool. If you don't have the space for like a tree monitor, that's pretty much a tree monitor in a skink. Yeah, they really captivated me. They're amazing. But there's loads of really cool species that get overlooked or have been overlooked. Again, going back to the night, I keep bringing up the 90s, but the stuff I saw back then when it comes to that sort of stuff, and maybe not the monitors. I think, like we said before the show, we've never had as many available monitors and new species that we have now. But we did seem to get a lot of these weird skinks and stuff that you don't seem to get anymore. So it's strange, sort of cuts around. But maybe talk about your Togianus. I'm going to go to the toilet quickly, mate. Too many
Yeah,
beers.
yeah.
And,
Go and you go. I'll start talking, and then I got to go.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so Chris had just asked me about my Varanus togianus. So it's an animal I've wanted like my whole life, all from one picture I seen in a book. Me and John and Dragna discussed it, and back then it was like you're not going to see that thing, blah blah blah. And turns out, like 30 years later, out of the blue, John and Dragna, he called me and he goes, "Hey, Mikey," he goes, "You want to buy Togianus?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't even know what Togianus is." He goes, "You remember that picture?" And as soon as he said that, boom, my eyes went right to that picture. That's burned a hole in my head. I'm like, "No way, you got those?" He goes, "Yeah, I got them." And he wanted a fair price for them. I was doing a lot of stuff at the time. That's when I was still doing, I don't know, 4 or 5 species of Adastras, which they kept me busy, man. Eggs hatching, and I got big gorilla hands, and those little tiny eggs, it got tiring and overwhelming after a while. So I got rid of all of that, and that was about a year later. And I was talking to a friend of mine who he said, "Would you like to trade?" Because I was not retiring. I was getting rid of my adult breeder Mertens because all my holdback raise-ups were now becoming adults. So I got rid of my original Mertens, and we traded for the Togianus. So I got the Togianus, and oh man, I'm telling you something. There's something about that species. It's just they blow my mind. They're like, I love Bacari. However, in captivity in the United States, for the most part, back in the day, even now, when you see a Bacari, it's kind of an ashy looking black. So it's black, but it has like a gray dust over it. They're not black and shiny. Like a black dragon is black and shiny, but they get gigantic. So when I got these Togis, I was just blown away because they are black and shiny, no ashy color to them. And then the contrast to them is white. So they're absolutely black and white. Beautiful, beautiful animals. I'm working on, I bred the world's first, which they're right behind me here, the 3 of them. And me and my son Angelino, we work with them a lot. And we're, it's a very aggressive species of monitor lizard. I wish I knew why, but like people talk all the time about, croc monitors. Oh, you got to be, you know what? I've been around many croc monitors, and I've never, you got to be cautious without a doubt. I'm not putting my hand near their mouth when they're fresh imports, but they really become quite docile. Where these Togianus, they're not. Most animals have a fight and flight. They don't have no flight. They're willing to fight to the end, but that's what makes them so cool. So, like somebody who keeps a king cobra and you keep it in captivity long enough, it no longer hoods up. It's just, it knows you're not a threat, so it doesn't do all its beautiful displays. Monitors, when they throw up a threat display, they arc their neck, they puff their throat out so they're like a diamond shape, and you could, anytime you look at one of these Togis, they arch their back, they arch their neck, and they diamond out their throat. Not necessarily, in an aggressive way. That's just what they do. They're telling you, I'm going to mess you up, and they will mess you up. So I really love that about this species. And I have a female in nest box right now. That's not my F1 captive borns. It's another pair of wild caughts. They were quite young when I got them, and they're just coming into breeding size now. But that's the goal with Varanus togianus from the Togian Islands, is I want to keep breeding them and working with them, and hopefully get them to the point where, and these guys are very tractable behind me, the captive borns. However, they will still threat display you, which I love. So I'm getting, I'm trying to make them a little more calm. and not as aggressive, but it doesn't seem like they're ever going to lose that threat posture, which is very cool. So while we're talking about Togianus, and like you said, all the things we're finding now and discovering now, with the Togianus, very rare in the States. Very rare to get in the States. I don't know why.
Pretty rare. Pretty rare everywhere, mate. They're pretty rare everywhere from what I can see. We haven't been offered any here. We've never worked with them at the farm, and I don't see any of the local guys working with many of them. Or if I don't know if I've seen any of the like domestic hobby that they're really into water monitors over here. That's like their number one thing in the Indonesian hobby. They've got localities of all these different salvators, but I haven't seen Togianus come up at all yet. So pretty interesting how they made their way over to the States.
Right. So with that being said, yeah, I have, John Adragna, he's the magic man. He gets, if John don't got it, it ain't available. So big shout out to John Adragna. But so with I started with what was supposed to be 1.2. Turns out it was 2.1. Then shortly, they're very, like the ones I have now, paired up, no problem. The ones, I had a total of 5 adults, and, trying to mix and match these adult wild-caught animals to get along, it was it was a process to figure out which 2 weren't going to kill each other. Because, like I said, they're very aggressive, and they have a dentition. People talk about croc monitor teeth. Listen, if the croc monitor is not going to bite you, those teeth don't mean nothing. These things have quite the dentition, and they're willing to put it to you. So I never want to take a bite from one of these. But with that being said, so from my understanding, and again, I don't know the wild. I've never traveled. But supposedly these are from the Togian Island. Varanus togianus from the Togian Island. And that's all I ever thought. However, when my 2 females, one died gravid, full of eggs. The other one laid her clutch, and those are my captive borns, and she died with 1 egg stuck in her. So the egg went septic, and she passed, unfortunately. So that's why I'm real nervous breeding these young animals. I'm hoping nothing like that happens again. But at any rate, if I get the eggs and I can keep producing these, it'll be great. But when I lost my females, I was desperate. It took me 30 years to even see one of these things. So I'm talking to everybody I could. Hey, where can I get them? But nothing. There's nothing. Somebody I think it was Nick Lillis, had contacted me and said, "Did you see that big black water monitor?" And of course, people call these Togianus water monitors. I don't believe they're water. I mean, that's a common name. We think we put labels on everything. I think these are more like a forest type monitor, just by the way they behave and stuff. So, of course, they're going to use water. But this big black animal was on the Cold-Blooded Shop's list. So I contacted Josh, and we were talking, and I'm like, dude, it doesn't look like a female. And he's like, oh, no, I guarantee you it's a female. I'm like, well, I was so desperate. I'm like, sent the money. He sends me the animal. I get this box. It was a huge box, and I go pick it up at FedEx, and I'm getting old, my hip and everything. It had to be about a 10-pound box, so it's very difficult for me to walk with things in my hands like that. So I'm hobbling out, put it in the car, get this thing home. I open it up, and this thing was, it's an 8-pound animal. It was huge. It looked nothing like my Togian Islands. So in talking with John, he goes, no, that's a mainland Sulawesi Togianus. And so the Togian Island animals are black and white. This Sulawesi animal was kind of like a graphite gray color with a lot of peach flecking on the back and the arms. And then the mask, the face was a peach yellow color. And when I first got it, I was like, as soon as I seen it, I'm like, dude, this is a male. It's so obvious, you know. I mean, his hemipene was bigger than mine, so you know, which ain't saying much, but you know, it was obvious it was a male. So, and when I first got it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I got this thing. I got another giant male I got to take care of. What the heck, you know? And a couple days in, man, I just started looking at that animal, and man, I'll tell you, that sucker grew on me. I loved him. Beautiful animal, but you know, everything happens for a reason, right, Chris? So
Yeah.
I think the reason is, you know, and I have a lot of photographic evidence of both Sulawesi and Toji Islands. And I was talking with Robert Spracklin, and I'm like, you know, Robert, I don't think these are the exact same species. I said, number one, there's a huge size difference. There's a whole body shape and structure difference, and their color and pattern is totally different. I mean, I get it. Locales could change like that, but so drastically. So, you know, hopefully Robert Spracklin can get to the bottom of if they are or they aren't. Thank God we're able to produce them in captivity now to where, you know, and then to where he could study them or somebody could study them and maybe change things with them. So last Tinley, I you know, I don't have all the space in the world. And so I called it Baby. And it really looks like a Komodo dragon, very big, round, bulbous face, beautiful animal. I bring it to Tinley with me, and you know, Nick Lillis, he's like us. He's just a veranda junkie, and you know, I didn't think he would. You know, it's very rare. How are you going to find a female? So actually, there was a Sulawesi female very close in the United States, the only one, supposedly an egg-laying female. So I tried to get that female. I tried to do a breeding loan with the guy. He wasn't cooperating with me in that way, and that's fine. I mean, I get it. I have no hard feelings over it. I would have loved to have been the guy to do it. However, Nick seen the Baby at the show, and I owed Nick a little bit of money for some deals we had done, and you know, and I love Nick. Honestly, I can't say enough good things about him. The kid's so humble and doing great work. So he's like, goes, what are you going to do with that, Unc? I'm like, well, I'm hoping to sell it. And of course, he walks away, and he comes back, and he's like, yeah, that's really, you know, that's kind of a beautiful animal. I'm like, yeah, okay, you're interested. He goes, I'm not going home without it. I said, okay, sounds good. So, and again, I don't really care about money as long as it's going to what I believe will be, you know, perpetuated offspring in the future. He lives very close to the other guy who had the female. And like I said, I'm a big, loud moron and whatever. I'm sure I rub people the wrong way. Nick, however, is so humble and meek and just a great guy. I figured, you know, he's close to the other animal. Maybe they could get it together as long as they're close. You know what I mean? And after a little bit of time, they worked it out. And now those two animals are breeding. I believe the female is gravid right now. So there you go. Thank God. And again, if he's able to produce those animals, again, I want, me and Nick both want, I'm sure everybody wants, you know, Robert Spracklin to study them and see if, you know, they could, again, don't forgive me. I don't know if he could pull them away from the, you know, the Toji Island, Togianus, give them a new name or one way or the other. But in my opinion, they are not the same animal, and they deserve their own, you know, spot in the chart.
Yeah. I don't know how I know a little bit about it. You'd have to compare it, I guess, to some Togian ones to see if they were separate from that. But if it was new to, it might be new to science anyway. If he can sort of compare it to other stuff morphologically, like the way it looks. I know that's one good thing about Robert. He doesn't rely solely on the DNA data. A lot of these monitors are very closely related, especially the tree monitors. It's insane how closely related those are.
Right.
But actually looking at it like me and you do, Mike. We can sort of look at two lizards and go, I don't know, the color and pattern might not be the same, but like the way they act, the head shape, all the scalation, everything. So luckily, Robert's really good. I mean, you've got a podcast with him next week. That's going to be amazing. I love speaking to him. I need to actually give him a phone call actually to see how he's doing. But yeah, that's going to be epic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was, I've known Robert for a long time through the forums. Like back then, it was just all in the forums. And of course, I'm a big fan of his. I've always, read his work and watched his work. And, now in this day and age to, be in direct contact with him, have him on my podcast, put his knowledge out there for everybody to gain a better understanding of these animals that we love. It's just, it's such a beautiful time to be in this game of reptiles and animals in general. So
another thing where we've come so far from back on those forum days to now, you can literally give Robert a message on Facebook, and more than likely, if it's not a stupid question, if there is, even if you could ask him one, I'm sure he'd get back to you anyway. He's a lovely bloke.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a thinking man. So I don't think you could really give him a dumb question, right.
Yeah.
He's his experience. Go on, Chris.
No, sorry, mate. There's a bit of a lag. I'm sure you'll get into it more next week. He's writing obviously the book, which is I'm sure is going to be the Bible for monitors. But between me and you and a few others, we keep chucking these new ones at him. I don't know how he's ever going to be like draw a line in the sand and be like, right, this is the first edition, and then all these. I mean, honestly, Mike, there's so much stuff that's undescribed that we know about. And then going on to all these new islands. Like I said, I wasn't even aware of those ones from Sulawesi that you've been talking about. We've got some interesting ones that we're going to raise up. I don't know if you've seen these before, Mike, from Ambon. They're a salvator.
Oh, wow.
I'd never seen them before. I don't know if they look anything like the Sulawesi's. The Sulawesi's not have any back patterns. Yeah,
well, see, here's the difference. So as babies, even my Toji Islands, I was almost going to say, because of the uniformity of the pattern, the dot pattern, I would say where was that from?
From Ambon. It's another island, but it's near to Sulawesi. It's like the next island on. I was looking at that the other day.
When you compare the Sulla babies to the Toji Island babies, the Toji Island babies look like, and I'm sure you know this because you're in Australia, you go to Australia and stuff. You know when they do the hand paintings where they blow so it's real like dusty.
Yeah, like
so the baby Toji Islands, when they're first born, they really lack the white on the nose and the throat. It's there, but it's not really pronounced, and their back pattern has that like a dusting of like off-white. Then when I've seen some of those Sulawesi animals are coming in as young animals, hatchlings, and they are not so much the dust look, but more like dots. So the dusting is a little bit bigger, almost like that animal there. However, the uniformity in the back pattern of that animal is not anything that I've seen in either of these two species. It's more random. Nothing is lined up. It's all just random.
Yeah. Like I said, I've never seen anything like it before. So like I said, Robert's got his work cut out for him. It's really exciting for us being able to get hold of this. A lot of these new species now, especially the States. A lot of stuff seems to turn up in the States. So really, really exciting. Anything else you want to talk on monitor wise, Mike? Or else we'll get into your snakes.
If anybody has any questions, you could pop them up. I could talk monitors, especially with a guy like you, all day long. And I hoped we could sit down one day in person and literally with John and Dragna, Nick, Brian Waterloo. We could all. I would love you to come to Monitor Fest. We could all sit around and talk like this for hours.
A bit like you were coming over here. I wanted to do Daytona in, I think it's August. I've always wanted to go to Daytona because it was just the show. I know it's probably not the show anymore. I think Tinley might be the show now, but I've always wanted to do a
They're
Daytona.
different. they're
Yeah,
different.
it's
You know,
more of
the
a,
animals you see in Daytona are, you know, you stand a better chance of seeing some oddball stuff. In my opinion, oddball, I should say wild caught. And I don't mean like junk wild caught, you know,
no.
things that have been established. But
Yeah,
to me, there's a lot. It's more like, you know, like, you know, you get everything without a doubt, but there's a lot of ball python and you know, bearded dragons, leopard geckos, crested geckos, a lot of that stuff. And there's that too at Daytona. However,
yeah.
you could see some really wild shit at either place. So it is
Yeah,
what it is.
it being by a beach sounds like a bit more of a holiday than maybe Chicago or somewhere like that. Where
Chicago in October. Yeah, Chicago in October. That's not a good vacation.
no. But like I said, it's just a nightmare to. I looked at flights maybe a month ago, and it's just so many stops and stuff to get there. It's almost like I'd be better flying back to England, I think, and then going to Daytona. But yeah, I don't know what we've gone to that, but.
Yeah, I'm not much of a traveler. I never have been. I kind of like staying in my lane, in my place. But I was invited to do a talk at the Reptile Talks in Anaheim this year. So it's probably the third time I've ever been on an airplane, and it's not like I'm afraid of flying. You know, I just hate being away from my animals and my house for that long. I'm kind of like I've always been a homebody. But
Yeah.
you know, here I've been invited to go to Anaheim. Me and my daughter, we agreed. She's coming with me because she's a vet tech and she helps me with all of this stuff. Most of my kids help me, and you know, she's really hands on with like veterinarian care with me and stuff. So she's coming with me. She's always with me at my presentations. She kind of runs the PowerPoint and clicks the screen and keeps me on point. But, you know, here I've been invited. I get the plane booked. Then I see, you know, the one flipped over. The plane flipped over. It started on fire. There was one in Midway Airport here just last week. The plane was coming in for a landing, and the other one was taxiing across the runway. Good thing this guy that was in the air hit the ground, and he just came right back up. I'm like, oh, my God, what am I doing? But I put my trust in the Lord. He'll see me through. One way or the other. Either I'm going to make it there and back or I'm going home.
Do you do the Daytona show, Mike, or not?
You know, I used to go. Matter of fact, I used to go when it was in Orlando. So, yeah, I haven't been there in a long, long time, many, many years. Like I say, I'm not much of a traveler.
Yes, that's a proper trek for you. I like America is obviously huge. You just sort of forget when you're from the UK where you can get to. I mean, the furthest away you can do one end to the other in like 8 hours. But when I go to somewhere like Australia, that's a sort of similar size to the US, you can be driving for like hours and hours and still be in the same state for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a difficult one. But yeah, I'd like to go. I mean, even to do a podcast with John and a few of the other guys, I'm sure we'd have a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it'd be great. And you know what? It's crazy to think that, you know, in the advances that we're making in the world of Varanus right now is, you know, I mean, this ain't nothing new. However, it is new. You know, there's new species being described all the time, new husbandry methods, new breeding techniques and nesting ideas. It's still holding my fascination after all these years. There's always an advancement. So, yeah, I like I said, we could babble about this for hours and hours. You want to talk about snakes a little bit? We could do that too.
Yeah, unless anyone's got anything monitor specific in the chat. Hi, Paul. Thanks for tuning in, mate.
Hey, Paul.
Been out herping. What have you been herping for, mate? There's only 2 things to find in the UK, isn't there? We're pretty low on the reptile species in the UK, Mike. I don't know if you know. I think we've got 6 species total in the whole of the UK and a few invasives. So
what type of snakes are in the UK? Like maybe Natrix?
Yeah, we got Natrix, I can't. They changed it. It used to be Natrix. It's Natrix. Something begin with the H now. Helvetica or something like that. They split all those up. So yeah, grass snake. We've got the smooth snake, which is pretty cool. They're really, really rare. Paul actually is right next to where those come from. It's a really, really small distribution of those in the UK. They're smart. And then we've got the common adder, So we've got 3 species of snake, and then we've got 3 lizards. We've got a common lizard, a legless lizard, which we call a smooth snake, and then a sand lizard, which are actually pretty cool. I don't know if you've seen them. They've actually come into the hobby a bit now, especially in Europe. I think Frank Payne's actually working with some in America. He's got some, they're like a lacertid, but with a really green back, basically. He's got some with like a turquoise back. So they're really smart.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of lacertas.
Yeah, they're cool. But
And
no,
the third species?
Got of lizard, we got smooth snake, which is like a legless lizard. It'd be like I think you've got glass lizards in pretty similar to that.
Yeah,
like a lizard head with no legs. The common lizard, which is just a brown lizard, and then we've got that sand lizard. Again, that sand lizard's range is really small. That's it. You can do all of where Paul's from. You can do all of those in one day in one area where he is, just because he's right in the range. You could smash them out all in one day. And then we've got some introduced stuff. We've got some Italian wall lizards, which seem to go all over the world. I think, again, you've got those in the States. They seem to do pretty well.
You guys better keep your eye on them Italian wall lizards, man. Them Dagos try to take everything over. But hey, now let me in the UK, like if I'm not mistaken, it's very balmy weather, right? A lot of balmy weather, overcast and maybe a little wet and rainy.
Miserable.
Pardon?
Miserable, you mean?
Okay, well, you know what? Maybe not for a guy like me, because I love amphibians. So there used to be a guy, I don't know if this was a pond on his property or somewhere where he would go visit, but every spring, I would imagine, he would set up a camera that looked into the water, and there was these newts just going crazy, breeding and swimming and laying eggs. I mean, it was just, and I lost, I don't know if I lost that link or that guy don't do it no more, but man, I could sit there for hours and just watch that little pond with, 20, 30 little newts just, going about their life. It was awesome.
Yeah, we're pretty good. We've got some cool newts, for sure. Like you said, if you get the right pond, there's one in an area. I know there's a bench literally right by it, and you just see them popping up to the surface and going down. I don't know, there's probably hundreds in there. And then we got obviously the toads and frogs that migrate, and then you obviously get all the frog spawn and stuff. So it's pretty cool. But I'm spoiled now. I've got like so many different reptiles and stuff in the back garden. It seems like a long time ago to just find the sick. Like I said, where I'm from, I can find I think four in one day. Literally, you go out for an hour and find all full species of reptile.
Very cool. So, hey, listen, I'm going to excuse myself real quick, but I can hear you. So ask if you want to talk snakes, we'll talk snakes.
Excellent. So Mike's had some success, which is nice to see, with some of the snake species that he's been working with. I think it's quite cool when the monitor people seem to go to the snakes. It seems to be quite successful. I don't know the reason for that. I don't know, maybe monitor keeping... we have to learn a lot more about the body language, or we're given a lot more of the body language of the lizards and stuff compared to snakes. Like I said, Mike's had some really good success with emerald tree boas. He's just got some bodens, pythons. I think he's got locking up, but we'll get into those. But yeah, if anyone's got anything in the chat, please let me know, and I'll fire it over for Mike. I don't know if Paul's listening. What did you find then, Paul? Anything interesting?
All right. Woo. Well, much better now. So, yeah, I heard what you were saying. I guess
it seems interesting. I know Frank Reitz had some quite good success when he started to work with the pythons. I don't know what it is. With a lot of the monitor people I can think of, when they go from monitors to snakes, they seem to have quite a lot of success. Do you think it's just like a different way of mind, like a different way of thinking, maybe, Mike? Or
I really, I don't know. I talk a lot with Scott Flood, who's very, very successful breeding the Bowen's pythons, and I never had this insight until I talked to him. He used to keep monitors and breed monitors, and you know, this is his saying. He says, lizard keepers or monitor keepers are snake breeders make okay lizard people. Lizard people kill it with snakes. And you know, I've always been into snakes. It's nothing new for me. I used to breed colubrids, rainbow boas, and whatnot. And you know, some of the colubrids that I bred were, you know, at the time pretty rare. There were all the North American desert rat snake species, which you know, again, I attribute my success with them to naturalistic keeping and you know, their temperatures and everything. So when I had no intentions of, you know, getting back into snakes, I love them. Don't get me wrong. And of course, emeralds are, you know, it's a bucket list snake for most people. The color is just their behavior. It's just a beautiful, beautiful animal. I never thought I would get them. However, my friend Josh Alder, who's an importer, and he's really trying to change the game. Like when he imports, he don't release nothing. He treats it, he hydrates it, he gets it all. You know, like most of the importers in the United States, they get stuff and they want to get rid of it before they have a corpse, right? What Josh does is he's not in that mentality. He wants to offer them for a little bit more money. However, he wants them to be well hydrated and you know, parasite free. You know, he's trying to do the game right, and he really is, man. He's a great guy. Empire Exotics, anybody looking? So when he's in Michigan and I'm in Wisconsin, so when he travels to the shows, him and his wife come and stay at my house, sleep overnight, and then they do their traveling. And it's beautiful because he comes over and we sit around, we talk, and you know, we have fun, and then I tell him, I'm like, hey nephew, ain't you getting tired? He's like, yeah, Unc, I'm getting pretty tired. I said, all right, well, you know where the bedroom's at. He goes, oh, I got to bring all the animals in. I was like, okay, yeah, go ahead, bring them all in. So he brings all the animals in. I'm like, hey, go to bed. You know, so he goes up and he goes to bed. I go through and rifle through those boxes, and I look for whatever is cool, you know. So the one time I'm rifling through the box, and there was a bunch of northern emerald tree boas. I'm like, cool, you know, again, not wanting anything, just seeing how cool they are. I come across this one solid green, completely patternless. And I put that one on the side, right? So he comes back down. And he goes, hey, what are you doing with that emerald? I said, nah, I don't know. We need to talk a little bit. He goes, don't worry. He goes, it's yours. If you want it, it's yours. So I took it. And now when I got it, MJ was, you know, getting into the emerald tree boas. And, you know, I thought it was just so unique. And I took it and I put it on the side. I was going to, you know, wait till it was feeding and everything. And I wanted to sell it to MJ. I wanted him to have it. So I called MJ. I showed him the pictures and everything. He goes, oh, that thing's badass, Unc. I'll take it. I'm like, okay, it's yours. So the next day he's like, you know, I had bad experience with wild caught animals. I'm like, dude, this is from Josh. He goes, yeah, I know. He does it a little bit better. And I'm like, no, he does it a lot better. So MJ kind of backed out of the deal. Yeah. And I'm real happy that he did, because now I have this beautiful animal, and it's just a stunning animal. So when I got that from Josh, I came down and set it up in one of my cages, a temporary cage. And then I hear somebody coming down the stairs. And like I said, I had no intentions of keeping it. And here comes Josh, and he's got another deli cup in his hand. And he goes, your wife bought it, because he knows how you are. She knows how I am. So she said she bought the male to breed eventually. And I'm like, okay. So I raised those for like 3 years together in the same enclosure. Never any problems. You know, they were small, young animals. And then Josh contacted me. We'll get into our husbandry in a minute. I just want to tell this story. If you got time?
Yeah, of course. All the time.
Okay.
Is it see that picture, Mike, or is it not working on yours again?
Yeah, I don't see it on my end. I see the little ring going in a circle. Are you trying to show my animal?
Yeah, it's that anaconda phase, which is the one you're talking about, which is the pure green
No,
one.
no.
Oh.
Here, let me see if I could take my camera over here, and I don't know, maybe I could spin this around and tell me if you've seen it, because I won't be able to see. So yeah, that anaconda female, there's a story with it, but I'll get into that in a minute. But just the one up top here is the patternless male that I'm talking about. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, we can see that. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that thing is just smoking
Wow.
hot, beautiful. There's there's one dot of white on it, literally just one. It's actually one scale. So it's a completely patternless emerald, and I thought it was unique. So when I raised those two together, Josh had contacted me, and there's a guy who has the opposite of what you have. He's got a normal patterned female and a partially patternless male. He goes, you should get them. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not looking to become a tree or a tree boa breeder. So I hooked up with that guy. That guy wanted some stuff that I had, so we made a trade, and I set them up. I do everything like I do my monitors, basically. Whether it's dry species or humid species, I pretty much do everything like I do monitors. So I set these up, and when I got them, the two little ones were still growing in these cages behind me here. So that was that. They were settled. And when I got these other two, man, I opened up that bag. That female's head was, 3 inches. It was the size of, I always say it was the size of a Valentine's Day strawberry, chocolate covered strawberry, huge head. So me and my son, a lot of my cages are over water for my monitors as well. So I'm like, hey, son, we got to drain this cage. We took out all the monitor setup climbing branches. And then I put your, typical boa thin little dowels for them to hang on. And we drained the water. We filled it up with bioactive soil, because that's all I ever use. And about a week goes by, and that female, she had a bad shed, and she shed her body real good, but her head was stuck on her head. So I'm like, oh my God, Ange, my son, I'm like, we got to take that thing out. We got to get that shed off its head. So that was very scary, because she's a giant animal, big head, big teeth. So we peeled her head. We got the shedding off her head, and I'm like, son, you got to dig all that dirt out of there. I'm going over water. So he was all pissed. He's like, Dad, we just put the dirt in. I'm like, take it out. So he takes it all out, fill it back up with water, get my filters and my heaters, everything running on it. And literally keeping them over water, I've never had any regurg. I've never had any bad sheds, stuck sheds. I've never had anything but great success with them. And again, I'm not attributing it to myself. I'm attributing it to the animals. I find them very hardy. They eat every time I offer them food. They keep it down. And then after me and Ange changed back to the water, that night, I'm like, yeah, I want to see how they're doing at night. So I come down at night, and they're locked up. Literally, the same day we went from dirt to water, they were locked up. So it's been many years since I bred rainbow boas. So, I have really no idea. I need guidance. So, I'm friends with Warren Booth, who's, a great boa breeder. He's my mentor with my emeralds for sure. Yeah, he's a great guy. You should get him on sometime. I know it ain't monitored, but you talk to him. If you want to know about these boas, you talk to him.
Yeah, for sure. He's from my part of the world. I think he's from Ireland, so he's over from my part of the world as well. But yeah, no, definitely I'd love to speak to Warren. Especially like I said, we've actually imported some northern emeralds to the farm, so we'll be working with them. So I'll be picking your brain all the way, and Warren for sure.
Yeah, no, and I'd like to talk with you about what you're seeing with yours, and maybe between talking like that.
that's interesting with the water, Mike. I think I seen a video from Dave Kaufman. He was finding some wherever it was. But they were right next to a river, I'm sure, and it was literally hanging over like a river system. And I'm sure, I don't know if it was a basin I seen a picture of, or it might have been a northern. That was literally on a stick in the middle of a river. So obviously,
yeah, I know that picture you're talking about, man. That's just fantastic. It pretty much, in my opinion, and don't take it for what it's worth. I'm no big boa guy. It pretty much sums up how I do my boas. I keep them over water. I mean, there's dry land, there's live plants in there. The only plant I don't kill is pothos, but I have fake plants in as well. But so when these two locked up, and now I have no idea. It's been a long time. So Warren Booth kind of walked me through everything. Here's what you're seeing. Here's what to expect. And it pretty much went exactly the way he said. The only thing that didn't happen with my first, or actually the second pair of mine, but the first breeding is, I'd come down every night for 8 months, 8 months, just where are the babies, and it's just impatience.
It's a long time.
It's a long gestation. You ain't kidding. So I finally started getting tired of coming down in the middle of the night and there's nothing going on. I figured, you know what? One day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to see this waxy plug that a gravid female will expel a few days before they have their litter. So I wasn't coming down no more. One day I come down, and in the back, on the shelf in the back of the enclosure, I see this yellow ball. I'm like, oh, wow, man, that's probably the sperm plug. But I'm looking at it, or the plug, with a waxy plug, whatever it is. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, that almost looks like a dud ova. And then I look up, and all the plants on the top of the enclosure, I just see these little orange balls hanging. I'm like, holy shit, she laid her clutch. She laid her litter. So, yeah, it was amazing. So she gave birth to 16 live, and 8, duds, 8 orange ova, whatever it is.
Like slug.
And yeah, excellent. The babies, I listened to Dr. Warren. He walked me through how to set them up and to be very patient with the babies, which I'm not a patient person, but thanks to him, he kind of talked me down off the ledge, and I just let things progress. And just like he told me with the babies, he goes, yeah, just offer them live hoppers. And I'm like, man, these things are tiny. With a live hopper, I'm thinking the live hopper going to eat the snake, right? Because their eyes are open and they don't want to die. They're rodents. They're tough. So I put pinkies. I'd come down and the pinkies are, still there. And then the next night I'd, wait till I pull them all out, wait till night, put pinkies all back in their 16 enclosures. Nothing. And I talked to Warren. He goes, why aren't you using hoppers? I'm like, I don't know. It just seems off. He goes, Mike, live hoppers. It's the motion. It's the action of the animal. So I put the live hoppers, came down the next morning, 2/3 of them ate. And it really shocked me because the lump in their body was huge, but they handled it, no problem. So that was that. And once they started shedding and feeding regularly, they were an easy sell. I sold them all very quick, so quick, kind of kicked myself in the ass that I didn't even keep one of my own babies. But whatever. Yeah, they went to a lot of people, a lot of friends and stuff. So, it is what it is. Hopefully I'll get more. So then the original.
How were you keeping I don't know if you said, how were you keeping the babies when they hatched out? Let me show you.
Let me show you. It's very, like I say, I try to keep everything very simple. So I'm going to walk over here to the rack I built, and I'll put my hand in it so you can kind of see, the size of this. So you see this rack here?
Yeah.
These are all little, just little deli cup food containers like that. You go to, like when you go to the restaurant, there's the condiments and the pickles and stuff at a salad bar. So I keep them like this. as you can see, it's just over water. Very simple perch with a, pardon?
I said that was going to be my question. Was it you keeping the hatchlings over water?
Yep. Keep the hatchlings over water.
Yeah.
And yeah, and of course, literally, you're talking about because I don't know if you know this about emerald tree boas, but they're freaking horrible swimmers, man. So I actually had one of the babies obviously dropped to the water and wasn't able to get out in time, and you know, they drowned real easy. So, and here's another crazy story about that. So when I had the litter, I left them in with the mom and the dad the whole day, and then nighttime came, and I took one of I have these acrylic cube setups, and I was going to put them over water. I went to I don't know, Michael's or whatever, the Hobby Lobby, and I got this. I was looking for purchase something to use, plants, blah blah. So I found this. It was a Christmas wreath, but it was just thicket like, you know, it's like very thin vinage. So I took that thing, I cut all the little connectors off of it, and I puffed it up. So now it's this big circular thing of just spittly little things for them to hang on everywhere. And I wanted to put them over the water, so I put one of my Oasi filters with the heater in it. And now that filter needs to be, you could lay it on its side, but it needs to be covered in order to run properly. So as I'm filling it, and get it all running, put all the snakes in there, and everything in my room is on timers. So when I came down to look at the babies at night and see what they're moving around, just see what they were all about. This is before I separated them. This is like right after they hatched. So I figured, I'm going to come down after 7 o'clock. The lights go out down here, and I want to see how they're acting in their environment, this new environment. So I come down, and I didn't have it on a timer. So the light was still on. They're all perched neatly. Nobody's moving. So I'm like, oh, shit. So I unplug the light, and then I go to my sink. I'm washing my hands, doing whatever it is I'm doing, maybe 5 minutes tops. And I go back to the cage I have set up for them, and there's like 2 or 3 of them in the water, and they're just, terrible swimmers, just flipping and flopping. I'm like, oh, God, what am I going to do? So plug the light back in, drain the water, put just a little, like not even 1/8 of an inch, just barely covered the bottom. If they went into it, they could still sit upright, So you got to be careful with water with the emeralds. As long as they have like a thicket or tangle in the water, and they could get an anchor base, they're good. But free swimming in water, so if the light was on a timer, I would have came down and they would all been dead. They would all been drowned in the water. So, like I say, everything happens for a reason. So, the reason I say that too is for anybody, just be careful with them around deeper water. My adults never had a problem with them, but I got pothos just choking in the water, so they can always gain a foothold and get out.
So they're really awkward snakes, like the green tree pythons and stuff, which obviously fairly similar, obviously not the same, but they're pretty good all round. But we've got one emerald tree boa here. When we get her out, they just flail around a lot, and they're not very. They have to be in the tree, a bit like you're saying, Mike. They seem to have to be in the trees, and they're no good on the floor. If you put it on the floor in a tub or anything like that, it's like it's completely into it. They're definitely built to be fully arboreal in the trees for sure.
Right. So the 2 original ones, normal pattern northern, which I thought was a female. Oh no, I thought was a male. My patternless, I thought was a female. Now, after I got those babies, these guys are growing up for, 3 years together, and there's never been any problems. Then all of a sudden, I come down one night, and I'm like, wow, these 2 are starting to breed. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. And then I noticed, Angelino goes, hey, Dad, that one's got a slice on it, like you took a razor blade to it. So I'm like, oh, wow, and we watched them for a little bit. And I got on the phone with Dr. Warren Booth, and I said, he goes, those are two males combating. Pull one. You need to pull one, otherwise they're gonna kill each other. So I raised them as what I thought was a pair. They were actually both males. So I pulled the one, and forgive me, whatever. So the patternless one was the winner. He didn't get sliced up. He was doing the slicing, so he's still perfectly, in perfect physical health. So, I owe a lot to Warren with all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I sent him that mail, and he nursed it. He nursed the wounds, and everything's good with him. I just talked to him last night. Everything's good with him, but now I need a female. So I'm talking to my friend who, when I first got these, my friend said, he goes, oh, cool, you got emeralds. I'm like, yeah. He goes, easiest snake I ever kept. I'm like, this ain't what you've been hearing over the years with emerald tree boas. It's always, oh, they're regurgitating, they're parasites and blah, blah, blah. So one thing I'm good at is I put that out of my mind. What experience other people have, I put that out of my mind and I go my own direction. So people were telling me when I first started with these, you're keeping them over water, they're going to be dead. You're doing, you're feeding them this, they're going to be dead. And so I just keep them like I keep my monitors. Of course, the setup's a little different, but the temperatures and a basking, I use basking lights. I don't use one of the heat panels. I use heated water. I spray the shit out of them, but not spray. I don't use mist. I use actually rain droplets. So like the shower part of a hose. And I literally spray the hell out of them. That's what's nice about the water bottoms. But like I was saying, the people were like, oh, no, you got to keep them on a doggy diaper and, you got to make sure it's very clean. And I'm like, if I ever had an animal that I had to keep on a diaper, I wouldn't have the animal because I just can't look at that. I can't look at that. So I'm like, what's the difference? Water, wet diaper, what's the difference, So I just do them over water, and thank God everything's been good, and things are going really well. So what's your experience with your new your emeralds?
We haven't got them in yet, Mike. We're actually they have to go from Guyana to Miami, and then Miami over here. We had like I said to you before through Messenger, we had two here for ages before I even got here. We unfortunately lost the male, but I spoke to the guys here, and they've had no, the big thing with emeralds is that regurg thing. That's all you ever hear is regurg. And I was like, you having no problems with them? And like I said, the female we got here, she's perfect. She'll eat massive meals and everything, doesn't regurg at all. So I'm waiting for those new ones to come in, and then hopefully we don't have the problem. But I'm a bit like MJ, and I hear MJ talking about it because I kept some back in the UK, and that regurg thing seems to be a real stickler for them, and I'm trying to work that one out.
I wish I could say, mine are captive borns and I've never had any problem. However, mine are all wild caughts, and I've never had any problems. They eat every time. When they're head down, they're looking for food. They eat every time. When they eat, they eat quite large meals, and they hold them down. They poop no problem. So I haven't experienced some of these nightmares that a lot of people have. And you know why? What I like to attribute it to? That I'm a dummy. I'm naive to it. I don't, I don't, when I heard all that regurg, and I'm like, well, let me just try things my way. And, if I start experiencing that, I'll switch up. I've never experienced it. So, I mean, I'm no big guy. I got 2 pairs. I don't have a bunch of animals. But the 4 animals I do have, the babies never regurged. Everything's been good since the jump. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I was trying to allude to it earlier. I couldn't really find out what it is. I didn't, like I said, I don't know if it, coming from monitors to snakes is like a different there's like a different husbandry between the monitors and the snakes. And if you're in the groups, you can get like the snake people are all obviously speaking to the snake people, so they might get in their own heads about it. It sometimes takes someone fresh like yourself to come from the monitors and just apply that to the snakes, which is completely backwards. I mean, it's probably exactly what the snake people say not to do. But you just look at body behavior and stuff that you learn from the monitors, applying that to the snakes. It seems to work out for some reason.
Yeah, I wish I could explain it. But again, just like we're always talking, I'm just a food monkey and a janitor. These animals are the professionals. I just set them up to the best of my knowledge and let them do their thing. So, and I'm very hands off with my emerald tree boas. Very rarely. I mean, only if they're stuck shed. The one time, I don't handle them. I don't play with them. I look at them. I observe them. That's all I do with them.
It might be because monitor people are always too busy with the monitors that take up way more work, and then they probably forget about the snakes, and the snakes might sort of thrive off that. That's what I'm like at the farm. Like the monitors take over 98%. I mean, I've just started working with a few more green tree pythons and stuff to get them going. We've got a team that does a lot of the snakes. But as I'm getting the monitors a bit more sorted, any extra time I go and help the guys with the snakes and say, you know, that you should pair that one with that one. And that sort of thing. So maybe I care less about the snakes. I'm more in my head about the monitors. I come to the snakes and care less about it. And
that's a great point that you bring up, because as monitor keepers, you know, monitors are an everyday deal. There's always something to do. Clean up a poop, change the water, you know, spray them down, do whatever. There's always something to do with monitors. Snakes, you know, you feed them, you pretty much leave them alone. Couple weeks, you give them another feed, blah blah. So I think, you know, if people are like us, that, you know, I want to work with my monitors every day, and I'm really glad that the snakes don't demand that of me. So I think maybe if you or I were a full-time snake people, we'd probably have too much time on our hands to sit around and look at them, and I believe maybe we would create our own problems. It could be.
Yeah, that's what I think what's going on. Let's finish off, Mike, with the Bolin's pythons. Another one that people don't have much success with at all. But you seem to be doing okay with them already.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. This is so. We everything we've been talking about, habitat design, and so the animals. This see that up there. That's a quarter barrel. That's a quarter whiskey barrel enclosure that I built for displaying at the Tinley shows, like my Audatrias when I was breeding them. And when I got rid of all that stuff, my wife goes, "Oh, cool! Now you can sell the barrels." I'm like, "No, I'm not selling the barrels. I love my barrels as much as I love my animals." So, in keeping that enclosure, I'm like, "Man, I wonder, what can I put in there that." It's a very small enclosure. So my friend, Ralph Kalinsky, he breeds a lot of pythons. So he had anthill pythons. And when I seen them, I'm like, holy cow, man, are those things beautiful. So I bought his pair of anthill pythons. I put them in the quarter barrel setup. Perfect. That's the first python I ever bred, which was like 2 years ago, the anthill pythons. So, I'm more of a boa guy. I don't know why that is. I'm more of a boa guy. And of course, Bolins. I mean, who wouldn't want Bolins, right? And I thought I'd never get them. So a friend of mine, a very good friend, who's, he's got a young family coming up, growing up. He just had another baby. Doesn't have a real lot of time for all these animals. However, he's very passionate about all of his animals. But, family life, work. He's a younger guy. I've been there. You got to kind of ease back, raise your family, go to work. So that's kind of where he's at. And he's always trying to sell me on build all your basement. I'll send you my lace. I'll send you my croc monitors. I'll send you my tricolors. I'm like, I kind of have my hands full with the monitors right now. I'm kind of working with everything I want to work with. I said, but if you ever get tired of them Bolins, you could send them over. He goes, I'll send them Tuesday. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, I'll send them Tuesday. So I was like, holy shit. Now me and my kids, we got to scramble and build some, cages. I don't normally buy cages. I build them. So we scrambled and we built the bull and I cage. And then I went to FedEx, picked them up. I pulled them out. I was just like, wow, man. They're mind-blowing snakes. They are absolutely beautiful. And so hold on a second. I got to plug in. Yeah, they're very beautiful. And again, I'm not much of a python guy, so I really wasn't knowing what to expect. And, talking with Ari, Keith McPeak, and Scott Flood, of course, I'm kind of gaining a grasp on it, which is something very hard to grasp, a python in super cold conditions. And, when I say that, it's not a brumation period. So I was getting them down. When I first got them, I thought I was good with a basking spot of like 90 degrees. And then, overall temperatures much cooler. The coolest spot in the cage at the time was, 70 degrees. And Scott, I'm talking to Scott Flood, he goes, colder. I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, colder. I'm like, it's just blowing my mind that these animals at 70 degrees are able to eat, and be active, coil their prey, kill their prey, eat their prey, digest their prey, shed their skin. And he tells me colder. I'm like, now I'm getting nervous. I mean, I'm out there in the room watching these things and my feet are cold because it's cold in that room. I got them down to, before this real cold winter set in, I got them down to like, 65 degrees. And I was, bragging to Flood. I'm like, God, I got it. I got him 65. He goes, colder. I'm like, colder? He goes, get them down to 60 degrees. He goes, I know guys that get them down to like 50. I'm like, wow, these aren't my animals, and there's no way I'm going to 50 with them because, I'm not going to kill $60,000 worth of animals. So I got them down to 60 degrees, and they needed a little fattening up when I first got them. So I got them all into good shape, got them down to 60 degrees, and all of a sudden the male starts spurring the female. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So the male does a lot of spurring. The females do a lot of sitting, and I actually caught them locked up one time. And you know how it is with bull and I. People have been there a million times. And they get their ovulation, and then just the eggs never come. So I'm really hoping being naive is my ace in the hole. So that's what I'm hoping, that just being stupid and naive with these animals is enough to, get me to the finish line again. It'd be a great feather in my hat, without a doubt. But more importantly, this is a pretty rare animal, and I would like to get them captive born and put them in people's hands as captive borns. And it's good for the species, good for my hat, collecting feathers or whatever you want to call it. But, it's a very enigmatic species, I believe. There's a lot of puzzles to them. And I think by being naive to the whole thing and just kind of really listening to Scott Flood, it's gotten me this far. So I know you get them year in and year out, don't you?
We usually get 1 or 2 clutches a year. They do well. Again, not to say this is the reason for it, because I know this was touted around a lot and I don't think it's right. We're at 500 meters elevation, but like I said, we're in that valley. So like we get all these weather systems coming from where they're from in like Wamena and places like that. It's pretty miserable, and that's what it's like here a lot of the time. Actively, like yesterday, it was really hot. And I went and looked, and we got all the Bolins in one sort of area, and they've got like these massive enclosures with like a big area where they can get outside and bask, and then another area where they can get away. And you think they'd be, utilizing that sun. It's been pretty miserable and cold here. I thought, all the Bolins for sure are going to be sat out basking. Not one of them was out basking. But then, like last week, it was rainy, miserable, overcast, literally like spitting with rain. They're all out basking. They've really seemed to seek out that colder and wetter weather for whatever reason. They're weird. They're like I've kept diamond pythons before. They're most similar to sort of diamond pythons. They're just a big black scrub python that's a diamond python, really.
Right. So you understand when I say these things freak me out. There's cold temperatures, these conditions that they thrive in are like almost against everything as reptile keepers. Like that's like a brumation period for most animals. However, they're very active. They're eating, they're digesting, and it just blows my mind at these cold temperatures, the way they've adapted to do that. It's definitely a very specialized animal.
Yeah, they seem very what's the word? Very well designed to absorb that heat quickly. They don't not a lot of things need to sit out, and obviously the color being black and stuff. They bask for a really short amount of time and then they're gone, sort of thing. Then they're not out basking all day. You'll catch them in the morning when it's, like I said, it's pretty cold, especially if it's miserable. They'll sit out a little bit longer, and then that's it for the day. They're not one that sort of sits out in the heat, sort of like the retics and stuff. They'll sit out a lot more than the Bolins do.
Right. So with that being said, one more observation that I'd like to bring up with you while we're talking here is so I've never been a UV guy, UVA or UVB. I've never been one of those guys. Don't really know why. I do know why. So back in the day, whatever the first brand of UV light bulb came out for lizards, like their own marketing is what killed it for me. It's like, you get this percentage of UVA and B at this distance. However, after 6 months, you got to close the distance. 3 months after that, throw your $80 light bulb away and go get a new one. I'm like, I don't have money like that. So I just never went with it. And, when keeping the Audatrias, like the Kingorum, especially like the Kingorum and Ackies and Pilbarensis, I've noticed that like their scales are very granular and almost like there's a dome on them, to where when light hits them right, you can see that granular and it's almost clear. And I'm thinking about, again, this is just Uncle Mike's crazy thoughts. I'm looking at them and I'm like, wow, they come from a pretty harsh climate as far as sun and dryness goes. And I'm like, I wonder if that granular type scalation, reflects some of this UV A and B that, or maybe even the UVC, which is, cancerous. So maybe that's their way of protecting over the millennia that they've changed to adapt to protect themselves from the UVA and the UVB and the UVC. I'm just speculating. Now, when I think of that same process with Boeleni python, and you look at the black coloration, which is going to absorb heat and light, and however, they have this super iridescence. So is that a way to protect them from this, high levels of UVA or UVB, or is this a way to absorb more of it? It's a question I'd really like someone to answer.
Yeah, I don't know if Ari's taken any UV meter readings where they come from.
Yeah,
he'd be the
man. He has, and it's quite high.
It's high, is it? Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very high UV reading.
I mean, that goes back to the point that I was sort of making. They're not out in it for very long, Mike. I think they sort of come out, bask. They're that black color. They heat up, do everything. And like I said, if I go, they probably wake up and come out to bask. It gets light here at like 6 o'clock. They're probably out by 7, and then by 8:30, 9 o'clock, they're gone, and you don't see them for the rest of the day.
Right.
We've got like the nest boxes we use for them, going sort of off sort of Ari's idea and how they find the nests in the wild, where they're dug into the floor basically. So they're actually sunken in. We've got one in the front and one in the back, and then they just go into that. And then if the weather's really miserable and that temperature really drops, they might come out again. But if it's a sunny day, you don't see them. You literally don't see them at all. Which is
right. See, so
for any python.
Right, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. It's very enigmatic species. It's puzzling, and so like you said, they come out, they bask very short and go. And I've also noticed with mine, in with the temps, it really blows my mind. So when I come down here at night and it's cold, and I'll shoot them, they're probably now this is while the lights are on and everything. They're probably 10, 12 degrees higher than the coolest temperatures in the cage. However, when I come down, a few hours after the lights are out, and I know that there's no way they've they're just come away from a basking spot. They've been away, lights have been out for a couple hours. I'll shoot their bodies, and they're still 6, 8 degrees over the coldest part of the cage. So I don't know if they're producing their own heat or if they just designed to really hold the heat. But it's really crazy.
Yeah.
So I think, with like you say, in these horrible conditions, what we think are horrible, they thrive in that. And again, I'm spitballing. I'm probably totally off my rocker, but okay, their black coloration, they're not out there long in the sun. So they're taking on a lot of heat and UV, and then they go away. So the black coloration helps to gain their heat. What about the oil slick? Is that keeping the UV radiation off of them? Or is that, you know what I mean? I wish I knew if that's drawing more or repelling it. It's, because we all know that sun could be quite harsh.
For sure. Yeah. I honestly never even thought about it, Mike. It's just a black scrub python to me, mate.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I do a lot of ciphering like Jethro. I sit around and I think stupid stuff, and I could be totally with the face, but hey, at least I'm thinking.
I'm like, oh, for sure. I'm like the worst person to speak to. Bolins are like an amazing animal. I do love them. But I deal with like a lot of scrub pythons and stuff, and I see so many similarities between it. They're like, I think if I cared about them too much, I'd be over there all the time worrying about them. And it's like thing again. It's like it's just a black scrub python that doesn't like it hot, and that's the way I treat them. So I'm like the worst person to speak about bolins to, but they're fascinating snakes. And like I said, I don't know what that iridescence is. Someone should work that out in all reptiles. And like I said, with those king aurum and stuff, I know exactly what you mean. With that sheen that comes over them. In the right sort of light, you get it with Beckerize, or maybe it's a black animal thing as well, Mike. That's one thing to think about, because you get that sort of not an iridescence like you do with bolins, but if you catch a Beckeri right, they also get that sort of sheen. Maybe it's something to do with that black coloration. I don't know.
Right. Well, speaking on that, then it goes back to the Togis. From what I understand, Sulawesi and the surrounding islands of like Togian Islands and whatnot, I would imagine it's quite hot. So why would they evolve to be a black lizard? Is they're gaining their heat quick and they're done with it? It's a puzzle.
Yeah, it's a trick. Again, I was looking at where Beckeri come from, the battery monitor, and everyone was thinking for a little bit, oh, it's really mountainous there. It makes sense that they were at higher elevation. It's like one of the Aru Islands is like one of the flattest islands you get in Indonesia. It's like the tallest mountain there's like 250 meters. It's literally the flattest possible land. So why are those ones black? It's interesting.
Right. Well, you see, there you go. This could bring us full circle now. We were talking about in the old days, people speculated what you were just talking about, that they're in these high elevations, and then now you're there and they're not from high elevations, they're from a pretty level place. So the speculation is gone nowadays. It's great.
It was just interesting. Because we make up these theories in our head. I think that made total sense. I think for the bolins, it probably does make sense. The same for the diamond pythons. They're that black coloration that definitely going to absorb some more heat for where they are. And it's interesting. The carpet pythons sort of get brighter as you go up that coast to more tropical areas. Down in sort of around Sydney, Victoria, in that area, they're black. So it's got to make sense for those bolins to be the same. But when you go to the monitors, there's no reason for those Togian ones to do that for the heat. It's definitely warm enough there. No reason for these Beckeri to do that. So always left more questions than we've got answers for, which again, full circle makes it fun. So I think we should wrap it up there, Mike.
Okay.
You've got a podcast that you would do with Gin every other week, opposite to my one. You got an amazing guest next week, Robert Spracklen, which we spoke about. I'm really excited to listen to that one. I'm not going to be on for a few weeks now. I'm actually off to West Papua again to do a bit more herping over there. So I don't actually know when I'll be back. I'll let everyone know when I'll be back. If there's anything else you want to shoot out, obviously you've got an amazing Instagram, Mike. You're super easy to get hold of. So anything else?
Yeah, just just reach out to me if you have any questions, or if there's any way I could possibly help you. Cage design, whatever I can help you with. I'm always if I don't know, I don't know. I'll either refer you to someone who I think does know, but I'm not going to give you any bum steers. But again, Chris, thanks for having me here. Thanks for bringing your knowledge and insight to Trap Talk Network for people to understand, listen, and learn. So thank you very much. And thanks to MJ and my partner, Jin. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, big thank you. Like I said, there's podcasts on everything now. He's got pretty much 7 days a week. So big thank you for MJ for hosting us on here. I'm going to sign us out, Mike. I'll speak to you afterwards. Big thank you for everyone that's listened. If you can like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. I never say it, but apparently that's important for the whole network as well. So yeah, big thanks, guys, and I'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Cheers, mate.